The President will now have to nominate a new CIA chief,
There's not much holding that
who will
on,
then have to be confirmed by the Senate.
The main Syrian opposition grouping outside the country, the Syrian National Council, is having talks in Qatar today with representatives of other organisations opposed to President Assad. It's hoped the talks will lead to the formation of a new unified body, which could become a government in waiting. Yesterday, the Syrian National Council chose a Christian former communist, George Sabra, as its leader. The authorities in Sri Lanka say at least 27 people have been killed in one of the country's worst prison riots in decades. It started when police went to the jail in the centre of the capital, Colombo.
Well, like, go up here.
Some prisoners are said to have escaped. From Colombo, here's Charles Haviland.
The head of the prison service said the violence began when prisoners rounded on hundreds of police commandos who had entered the jail to provide security for a search by jail officials. The commandos used tear gas and prisoners broke into the armory, seizing weapons and taking officials temporarily hostage. Prisoners' families and friends have gathered by the jail in a state of panic. Dozens of people, including some police and soldiers, have gunshot wounds. Some are seriously injured, including the head of the police's special task force. Eyewitnesses saw soldiers firing on a group of prisoners in the street outside as they tried to escape, killing at least 3. The search is on for more escaped inmates.
Police in Lancashire searching for the remains of a man who was murdered more than 7 years ago say they found a body. The discovery was made yesterday near Bolton by Bowland, close to the Yorkshire Dales. David Guilfoyle, who was 37 and from Accrington, was murdered by Shane Fitzpatrick, who was jailed for life in 2006. A global day of action.
Then he told them where his body was. That was in the paper yesterday.
He's very religious. In Pakistan exactly 1 month ago. Malala campaigns for girls' education is still being treated at a hospital in Birmingham. In Pakistan, President Zardari has added his name to a global petition urging the country to do more to support education for girls. He was handed the document by Gordon Brown, who's the UN's Special Envoy for Education. Mr. Brown said Malala had taught the world a lesson.
I think Malala has illustrated the world just how bad the situation has been and how tolerant we unfortunately have been of the denial of girls' rights for hundreds of years. And I think people have been complacently thinking that things were getting better when they were not. And now I think there's an urgency about action.
A wartime composition by the musician and writer of A Clockwork Orange, Anthony Burgess, which lay undiscovered for 50 years, is to be performed tomorrow. The piece will be played at a Remembrance Sunday concert in Manchester, the city of Burgess's birth. Our arts correspondent Colin Patterson has been listening to the newly unearthed music.
Anthony Burgess wrote Sonata for Cello and Piano in G minor in Gibraltar in 1945, just 7 days after VJ Day. The score was only found last year in one of the late author's former homes in Italy. Andrew Bidswell is the director of the Anthony Burgess Foundation.
You can see it's been sort of battered about a bit. Burgess was in Gibraltar because he was in the army. He'd been conscripted in 1940. The second movement is dedicated to the dead of the 1939 to 45 war.
That's why tomorrow the piece is to be played during a special free remembrance concert at the Imperial War Museum North in Manchester, the city Burgess left in 1940 and would serve in the Second World War.
The Statue of Liberty has been illuminated for the first time since Superstorm Sandy rocked New York City 10 days ago. Temporary lights have been placed inside the statue, which sits on an island in Manhattan Harbour.
He's taking a left, look, watch him now. Stay back, stay back. He's going left, stay back.
No.
It's 8:10. The Syrian National Council, the main opposition group trying to depose President Assad, has chosen.
He knows the road.
He's a Christian, George Sabra, former communist. He's been a long-term opponent of the Assad regime, fled the country last year. He's been imprisoned before now for his activities.
There's one behind
After
you,
he was announced as the SNC leader in Qatar, he said the fact that he, a Christian, had been chosen was evidence that the movement was not sectarian.
We can't understand how can you establish and organizing establishment in few hours. People right now didn't know each other. Unbelievable.
Definitely going to be late for work.
You can get a steady establishment, can support the Syrians.
Mate, you will take him here. He's in tight.
Needs. more
Wait
time
and see.
to establish this kind of organization.
I can go down the old Warren Point
George
Road, he can go down the
announced as
ordinary
leader
way.
of the
Yeah.
Syrian National Council were joined
Not going to get
by
overtaken.
Bassem
Well,
Imadi,
mate.
former
Just wait and see.
Not.
SC member
Too
and
wide.
former Syrian ambassador to Sweden.
Too wide.
You would on it.
There are
Ah,
talks
yeah,
going
yeah,
on,
Danny, where?
Mr. Amadi, between the various opposition
Show
groups
me.
to try to get some sort of united
The
front,
taxi
which
driver
they hope
behind
will
us is-
improve
No,
the
you won't.
prospects of getting assistance from outside.
You
Do
were
think
wanting me
that
to
Mr.
overtake
I was only joking.
Sabra's choice
I wasn't like
helps
that.
that.
Do it now.
Good morning to
Hello.
the listeners. Actually, the election of Mr. Sabra is a good move because it proves to the
Right.
world that the
Very
Syrians
Warren
have
Point Road.
really
You see, stay well behind him.
Hello.
resistance.
Oh,
Sorry, we
Let
lost
him-
you
he's
there.
going.
Yes, do carry on.
Me.
Yes,
They're going.
and,
Yeah.
That's right,
but
go this way.
unfortunately, with the
Mary
Syrian
Screen,
National
maybe, what
Council,
if
there is something
Will
that
be.
one should explain. The Syrian National
That's right.
Council is not the opposition that the world knows. I mean, we know that opposition in each country
It's mad.
constitutes
It's mental.
some parties which have a leader and some followers. Unfortunately, in the